Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder. Today, P.A.S.G just filed a Form 8K, and I am seeing a critical strategic shift that investors need to understand. Quick note, this is not financial advice, just my take on public filings for educational purposes. The big story here is P.A.S.G Bio is exploring strategic options, potentially including a sale or merger, and that is happening alongside some slightly improved clinical data. This filing is essentially an announcement of important news. P.A.S.G Bio Incorporated, the company we're looking at, has put out an update on their drug candidate PBFT-02 and also revealed they are reviewing their strategic alternatives. Think of this as the company telling the public, hey, big things are happening and we might be changing direction. So let's unpack the PBFT-02 program updates first. This drug is being tested for a really tough disease called Frontotemporal Dementia caused by progranulin deficiency, or FTD-GRN. It is a genetic form of dementia that affects younger people. The company announced updated interim data from their clinical trial, and honestly the numbers here are mixed but have some bright spots. Focusing on the biomarkers, which are like indicators of how the drug is working in the body, we see some promising results. For patients with a certain baseline score in the Clinical Dementia Rating or CDR scale for those with FTD-GRN, those treated with PBFT-02 experienced a significant reduction in whole brain atrophy. We are talking about a 64% reduction compared to patients in a natural history study. That means the brain shrinkage, which is a hallmark of this disease, appears to be slowed down considerably. This specific piece of data highlights that for a small group of patients, 2 to be exact, who had a CDR score of 1 at the start, their brain atrophy was about 3.1% at 12 months, compared to 7 patients in another study who had the same starting score. This is a huge 64% reduction. This is a really important finding because it suggests PBFT-02 might be doing something meaningful to slow down brain deterioration in FTD-GRN patients. Similarly, looking at the frontotemporal cortex, another area of the brain, we see a 54% reduction in atrophy for the same group of patients. This reinforces the idea that the drug is having a positive impact on brain structure in these patients. Then we look at plasma neurofilament, or NFL levels. NFL is a marker that increases when nerve cells are damaged. The company reports that patients treated with PBFT-02 showed stabilization of these levels after 12 months. This is good news. In untreated patients with FTD-GRN, natural history shows these levels actually increase over time. So stabilization here is a positive sign. Specifically, on average for 6 patients, their NFL levels dropped by 1 point OPG-ml after 12 months. This is better than the alternative. Contrast that with 7 untreated patients in another study who actually saw their NFL levels increase by a significant 13.5 pg/ml. This contrast really shows how PBFT-02 might be protecting nerve cells. Now, let's talk about the core mechanism of this drug. It aims to increase progranulin or PGRN levels in the cerebrospinal fluid, or CSF. For dose 1 of PBFT-02, the company reports a strong and lasting increase in CSF PGRN expression that continued for 18 months after treatment. This is key because low PGRN is the root cause of FTD-GRN. For 6 patients, their baseline PGRN levels were below 3 ng/ml. After 12 months, it increased to an average of 22.8 ng/ml, and by 18 months, for 3 patients, it was 24.2 ng/ml. This is a massive jump, indicating the drug is effectively boosting the production of this crucial protein. They also tested a second dose, dose 2. Interestingly, this dose achieved similar CSF PGRN levels as dose 1 after just 6 months. This might suggest potential for dose optimization or different treatment strategies. With dose 2, 2 patients out of 6 saw their PGRN levels rise to a mean of 8.6 ng/ml after 1 month, which is actually above the normal range for healthy adults. Then for 1 patient, by 6 months, it reached 22.6 ng/ml. These numbers show that the drug is consistently working to increase PGRN. Now onto safety. From the 23rd of March 2026, there were no new serious adverse events reported related to the treatment since their last update. This is reassuring. This is a direct statement confirming no new major safety concerns have emerged. However, they do mention that as previously disclosed, 2 patients who received dose 1 experienced 3 serious adverse events that did not cause symptoms. These were 2 cases of venous sinus thrombosis, which is a blood clot in the brain veins, and 1 case of hepatotoxicity, meaning liver damage. While these were asymptomatic, they are still serious events that were related to PBFT-02. Moving on to the regulatory side, P.A.S.G Bio had a meeting with the US Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, to discuss plans for a future trial that could lead to approval of PBFT-02 for FTD-GRN. The FDA basically said that to get this drug approved, they will need a randomized controlled registrational study design. This means a trial where patients are randomly assigned to either get the drug or a placebo. This sentence confirms they met with the FDA to get advice on what a main drug approval trial should look like for PBFT-02 in FTD-GRN. And the key takeaway here is that the FDA requires a specific type of trial, a randomized controlled one, for PBFT-02 to be considered for approval for this condition. This kind of trial is considered the gold standard for proving a drug's effectiveness, but it is also more complex, expensive, and time-consuming to run. Because of the significant challenges associated with running such a trial, ethical considerations, practical difficulties, and the sheer cost, PASG Bio is now reconsidering its next steps. They are looking at what to do next with PBFT-02 for both FTD-GRN and another related condition called FTD-C9 or F72 within their ongoing Uplift-D trial. This suggests they might be looking for alternative paths or perhaps slowing down. This brings us to the corporate update, which is arguably the most significant part of this filing. PASG Bio has started a process to explore strategic alternatives to maximize shareholder value. This is a corporate announcement that the company's board of directors has decided to look into all possible options to get the best return for their shareholders. And what are these alternatives? They might merge with another company, get bought out, do a reverse merger, which is basically a way for a private company to become public by merging with an already public one, sell off parts of the company, form new partnerships, license out their technology, or explore other possibilities. Essentially, they are open to many different outcomes that could lead to shareholders getting more value. This review is already in progress. The company isn't planning to share any more details unless their board makes a final decision on a specific action, or if they are legally required to disclose more. This means we might not hear anything for a while. They are also being realistic, stating that there is no guarantee that this review will actually lead to any deal or transaction. It's a process they are undertaking, but the outcome is uncertain. To help them with this big review, they have brought in Wedbush Pacro, a financial firm, to guide them through the process. This is standard practice when a company is exploring major strategic changes. Now, let's look at the stock itself. PASG Bio's common stock is traded on the NASDAQ capital market under the ticker symbol PASG. Here we see the details of what is registered. The primary security is their common stock, with a very low par value of $0.0001 per S-hair. The ticker symbol is P.A.S.G, and it is listed on the NASDAQ Stock Market LLC, specifically the NASDAQ Capital Market. PASG Bio is also marked as an emerging growth company. This means they can take advantage of certain regulatory and disclosure accommodations. They have indeed elected to be treated as an emerging growth company, and they have also indicated that they will not be using the extended transition period for new financial accounting standards, meaning they will adopt them as they come out. This section, Regulation FD Disclosure, is where companies release material information that could affect how investors see the stock. What we've discussed about the drug data and the strategic review falls under this. This is the heading for the program updates we have already covered. This sentence summarizes the core event of the filing on the 20th of April 2026. PASG Bio announced new data on their drug PBFT-02 for FTD-GRN, and also gave updates on regulatory matters and the company's overall strategy. This section just lists the exhibits that are part of this filing. Here we look at the exhibit numbers and their descriptions. Exhibit 99.1 is the press release itself, dated the 20th of April 2026. Exhibit 99.2 is a corporate presentation, also dated the 20th of April 2026. This presentation likely contains more visual information and details supporting the announcements. Exhibit 104 is the cover page interactive data file, formatted as inline XBRL. This is for regulatory compliance and allows data to be more easily extracted. Finally, we have the forward-looking statements. This is a standard legal disclaimer. These statements are essentially predictions about the future. They use words like expect, anticipate, and potential. PASG Bio is telling us what they hope to achieve, but also that these outcomes are not guaranteed. They are covered by legal protections that shield them if these predictions don't come true. This section covers their evaluation of strategic options, the possibility of a deal, thoughts on clinical trials, working with regulators, and the potential of their drug candidates. This is the formal sign-off for the report. This indicates that Kathleen Borthwick, the Chief Financial Officer, has signed the report on behalf of PASG Bio Incorporated. So what is the story here? PASG Bio is a small company with a market cap of around $37 million and only 24 employees working on a really tough neurodegenerative disease. They've shown some promising biomarker data for their lead drug PBFT02, suggesting it might slow brain atrophy and increase a key protein in FTD-GRN patients. However, the FDA is pushing for a more rigorous, expensive clinical trial, which is a significant hurdle faced with this challenge, and likely considering their financial runway. The company is now actively seeking a buyer or a merger partner. This situation is common for smaller biotech firms when clinical development becomes challenging or when a company is exploring ways to maximize shareholder value. Institutions like Lynx One Capital Management hold a significant portion, nearly 20%, so their perspective will be crucial. Historically, companies that initiate strategic reviews often end up being acquired. For example, many small biotechs in similar situations have been acquired by larger pharmaceutical companies looking to expand their pipeline. The risk I'm watching is whether the FDA's demand for a controlled trial will significantly devalue the company in the eyes of potential acquirers, or if the promising biomarker data will be enough to attract a buyer despite the regulatory hurdle. My biggest concern is the financial feasibility of a full registrational trial given the company's size and recent performance trends. What I'm actually looking for is a clear indication of interest from potential buyers that reflects the value of their drug pipeline and technology. Oh, and the research tools I actually use are linked in the description. They help keep this channel going. That is my take. Stay decoded. If this analysis was valuable, hitting that like button really helps, and subscribe for more deep dives.